Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining the webinar today. We're going to wait a few more minutes while more people join before we get started. Okay, thank you everyone for joining. We're going to go ahead and get started now. So during this webinar, we'll be talking about how to market your event, and then we'll also go over some tips for reaching out to dealerships and a reminder about some common insurance questions. All right, and so I just want to introduce the speakers today. It'll be myself, Kylie Morgan from Plug in America, and it'll also be Jeff Holland. He'll be giving us some tips on marketing your event. Steph Larson from Sierra Club may or may not be able to join us today, but I'll be sure to share her tips on social media if she can't join us. All right, so to get started, there are many ways to promote your event. You can promote it on radio, newspaper, online, or television ads. It never hurts to reach out to your local radio station or television stations to propose they do a short interview with you about your event or EVs. Radio might be easier to reach, but you can just ask them if they can promote your event, or at the very least, you can maybe go on and have them interview a bit about electric vehicles. And that's a great way to promote your event and spread EV awareness. Obviously, you can make flyers and post them around town. We do have a template for a tear sheet flyer on our website. It's helpful on your flyer if you have little tear sheets at the bottom with contact information, or you can direct them to the Drive Electric Earth Day website where they can contact you on the event page. You can also request to add your event to your city's event calendar. If you go to any city website and email their info email address or call them, you should be able to reach the appropriate person. And you can add your event to a newspaper calendar. And finally, if you're working with a larger event, you want to make sure to include information about your electric vehicle display, or if you're doing a ride and drive, give them information about that so they can include that information in their marketing. you can give them information about what vehicles will be present and let them know you'll also be providing information about electric vehicle purchase incentives and charging. One helpful thing to do also is to create a postcard or other flyer that they can send out with their marketing emails. All right, next, I'm just going to provide some tips on social media. So on Facebook, you can create a group for your event. You can also create an event page on Facebook. You can create an event on Facebook where you can provide updates. Also, if you have a group, you can post about your event and link back to the Drive Electric Earth Day website. Another very good tool is using Facebook Live before and during the event. So some ideas for this would be using Facebook Live to record someone taking an EV test drive for the first time, or perhaps record someone taking a ride in an electric vehicle where they experience instant torque for the first time. Live tweeting is also a great way to get people's attention. And on Instagram, you can use stories or take videos. Instagram is a great platform for posting really good pictures that you capture at your event or videos. And some other just general tips about social media are to mention any interesting activities at your event other than electric vehicles. So if you're part of a larger event that has a carousel or food trucks, any other type of interesting activity, be sure to mention that in your posts so that you're encouraging people to come not only to see EVs, but to do lots of other fun things. All right, and so we do have some tips for contacting media as well. We will be sending out press contacts to the Drive Electric Earth Day city captains this month. And on the Drive Electric Earth Day website, on the resources page, you can find a template for contacting media. You can also find a press release template. One thing I want to note when you're reaching out to your local, television or radio stations or newspapers is that don't take it personally. If the media say they're going to be at your event, but they suddenly change their plans, media are subject to the breaking news of the day. So they often make decisions about what stories they're going to cover the day of or the day before. And so next, just some strategies for securing media at your event is to focus on what makes your event unique. So if you can tie this event to a larger electrification push that your city is doing, that's a great hook for a news station. Focus on how electric vehicles are a new technology, they're clean, transportation, lower maintenance costs, all of that. You can also work with local influencers. If you have a local blogger who's very popular, contact them and let them know about your event and ask if they'll help you promote it. And as I was saying before, you can connect with state and local efforts. So if your city is doing a big push to install more chargers, or they really want to start that process, let them know about your event. This could be a great opportunity for public officials to come out and speak at your event. And that's something you can highlight when you're letting media know about your event. And finally, share compelling stories. So if you have someone who used to drive a gas vehicle and switched to EVs and now owns 2 electric vehicles, maybe they've taken a road trip across the country with their vehicle, or they've taken some other interesting trip, that's a great story to highlight. All right. And next, when to invite media to your event. So about 1 week before your event, you want to send out a media advisory to local news stations. As I mentioned before, news outlets are very focused on what's the news of the day. So it helps to send your event information about your event out fairly close to when your event's going to happen. And then 1 to 2 days before the event, it's good to call your local news outlets to remind them that your event is happening. You can also send out another media advisory or a follow-up email. And the day of the event, again, make another call to your local news outlets, and you can send a press release as well. And just a note, press releases aren't just for huge events and official organizations. Anyone can send one, and it's a great way to highlight the unique aspects of your event and really encourage media to come. All right, and now I'm going to send it over to Jeff Holland, and he's going to talk a little bit more about marketing.
All right, thanks, Kylie. And as we move on here, this is just a visual depiction on this slide of the number of activities from the Sacramento chapter last April. And as I understand it, Sacramento is one of the more active chapters, and you might be thinking this looks like a lot of events, but they were at various high schools, colleges, private businesses, hospitals, county events, things like fairs and street shows, things like that. And so it's a lot, or it looks like a lot, but it was very achievable if you get the right amount of hosts, and then you partner with the different organizations or different events that are happening in your areas. It started, I think, more than 3,500 conversations. They had about, I guess, upwards of 30 people at each one of these events. So I think overall it was very successful in getting the word out about electric vehicles, the association, and then as it was in April, that's obviously the Earth Day month, and Earth Day timing mid-month, and that's what we're doing this year as well. As we move on to the next slide, if we could, if you want to consider your own businesses or where you work, consider hosting an event at one of those locations. If you can work with your HR departments or your internal communications staff, if there's already events going on, you can kind of leverage those events to showcase EVs at the workplace. One advantage of this is that dealerships tend to be less busy during the weekdays. If you've got a weekday event, they might be more likely to send somebody over to the event, as they might not be as busy and maybe even bring a vehicle or two. They also might be more likely to be in the market for a new car, the attendees at these events, as opposed to family events. You might be able to mention that when recruiting these local dealers to your event, that we do allow private events to register on the website. Many colleges and other community centers are holding Earth Day events during this time. So look out for those and offer to pair with them by showing off your vehicle and talking about the benefits of driving electric vehicles. At the next event, kind of dovetails on the last slide, leveraging the larger events that you're part of. Promote the full event beyond the EV showcase. Include interesting event activities other than EVs. As you can see the slide, they've got kids activities, bounce houses, things like that can also help plus up the events to make it a more comprehensive type of event that might draw more participants and more folks out to the event itself. And then maybe even volunteers. And don't be shy about asking friends and family and folks that show up to these events if they'd like to volunteer at any of our events as well. On to corporate and workplace events, just to continue the conversation. Leverage internal communications, as I said, your human resources department, or if your business or company has an internal communications function or a person, you can work with those folks. If you're big enough and have sustainability teams, you can get the word out through employee newsletters, through your company intranet, web pages, email blasts, desk drops, things like that, just to get the word out on your event at the workplace. And then you could probably or possibly display vehicles at your business, either in the parking lot area. Maybe there's a showcase area that has this if your company is big enough. Also check for EV owners within your company or firm to join the event. I encourage them to bring out their vehicles because the more vehicles you have, obviously, the different varieties that you can showcase and show off to the employee base, just as opposed to just relying on a local dealer to bring some vehicles out for you. Gather information on your company's EV infrastructure, present and planned. Again, you could probably work with your HR function to plan those types of either surveys or emails and just get some interaction. Maybe you've got lunch and learns that happen every week or every month. Make sure you get with the folks that put that type of information, those types of communications out internally so you can get the word out. If you're doing these events, just make sure that you ask the employees to bring their driver's license. If you're planning to do a test drive, you could also do a ride-along kind of as an option where you're driving or the vehicle owner is driving and they're just riding along in the vehicle. And then you can offer an EV-related talk or presentation a few days before the event, just to kind of let the folks know what they're in for, what you'll be talking about, what you'll be presenting, what you'll be showcasing, and also the merits of EV ownership and electric vehicles as a whole. On to the next slide. For the actual day of the event, if you're part of a larger event, you can post signs about your EV display, help people find your EV showcase or ride and drive at a larger event. You can provide incentives for test drives, drawings, lunch vouchers, USB memory sticks, any kind of trinkets and trash, things that you can hand out just to encourage more participation always helps. And you can probably do that if you've got social outreach as well, running contests and polls that are usually kind of fun and engaging and help get more people interested. Have volunteers walk through the event, telling people about the EV showcase, hand out postcards about the EVs at your showcase. You can print these up either at home or probably at work if you're allowed, and then and use those as handouts and kind of mini brochures. On to the next slide here for photos. It's good to, as Kylie mentioned, it's good to take photos at the events. Just make sure that you get, if you can, get their permission to use it. We don't encourage shots of kids or children just for legality reasons, but we should post a sign at the event saying that we would be taking photos, or you will be taking photos, and you'd like to use them on social media. Different ways to do it, photos that work, as you see the one depicted here. Group shots are helpful, pictures of cars, people looking and driving cars, interacting with the vehicles. Anything that's cute, if people bring their pets along or dog or something like that, you might get a shot of some of those. Those always play very well. If you've got access to a dash cam or Facebook Live, you can film that right on your phone. And then there's a suggestion here to, make your instant torque face, or just kind of a funny thing, so it doesn't look like a stage or a posed, regular run-of-the-mill kind of a photo. Just some interesting and engaging shots and videos are always better. And then you can also use some photos from the Deed Media page and other events to promote your event, as long as you credit the person who took the actual photo. Should be okay.
Yeah, and just to jump in here, this is Kylie. So referring to the photos from the Deed Media page, you can find that on the driveelectricearthday.org website. If you go to the Media tab, you can see photos from past events, and then when this year is over, you'll be able to see photos from this year that people took at their events and gave us permission to use, and she'll be able to see the photo credit you should use there.
And Kylie, this is Guy. Just to add to that, we'll be adding a bunch more photos to that website over the next week. So we'll be able to give you more and more material to be able to use in any of your messaging.
Great, thank you. And that was Guy Hall from the Electric Auto Association. All right, and so I'm moving to the next slide. I can take it over from here, Jeff, if you're okay with that.
Sure. Yep.
Great. So in terms of photos, we just want to warn you about some privacy issues. It is good to ask permission to take someone's picture. Let them know, ask them if you can take their picture and use it for marketing purposes. Even if it's a public event, it's still good to ask. Also, do not use photos showing children's faces unless you have a guardian's written permission. And finally, as Jeff was saying, it's very good to post a sign just letting people know that by participating in this event, they're giving you permission to use their photo, because it is a public event space. So you just want to do the courtesy of letting people know that. And just a note, if you are working with Sierra Club to do an event, or you're a Sierra Club chapter, they do have much stricter photo policies. So you'll want to, you can email me if you have any questions about that, or you can email the Sierra Club chapter. And also, speaking of photos, the photo on this slide, I just want to point out, this is an example of a photo that you would want to avoid. And the reason being is you can't really see people's faces. We're seeing the backs of people, but also we can't see the vehicle. So, we can't see what type of vehicle it is, and there's no indication that it's an electric vehicle. An example of a good shot would be a picture showing a vehicle with plugged in charging, where there's also people by it facing the camera and smiling. All right, moving on to the next slide. So here, just wanted to give some tips on dealer outreach. So it's important to share with the dealer the value of this event to them. Consider that a dealer really wants visibility for their dealership and for their vehicles. So let them know how many attendees you expect at your event, and also let them know if you can offer to put up pop-ups or banners with their name. So they might already have these event supplies. For example, they might already have a 10 by 10 booth set up, and you can just let them know that they're welcome to bring that if it's available to them. Also ask about special incentives. So if they have any local incentives for electric vehicles, this is a good opportunity for them to showcase those. And you might also suggest that they create some incentives for the day. This would be a great way to get more people to your event, and this would certainly be a good selling point for them. If they can offer an incentive to people at the event, it'd be a good event for them to attend. And then finally, ask if the dealer sells used EVs. So the used electric vehicle market is emerging, and it's a good opportunity for people who don't want to buy a new one. And a good note is that the person they send with the vehicle from the dealership might not know as much as an EV owner knows about an electric vehicle. So it's good to give them, to gauge their awareness of electric vehicle incentives and charging, and teach them anything that they don't know, and teach them some common questions that you might get from attendees. Finally, it's good to know that Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays are critical days for dealerships. So these are days when they usually want their salespeople on the floor to respond to customers. So if your event is on a weekend, like most events are, you want to really sell them as to why it's beneficial for them to be at your event. Again, point out how many attendees you expect, how this is a great opportunity for them to showcase their vehicle and talk to potential customers one-on-one about the vehicle. And another thing you can point out is that an electric vehicle event is a unique opportunity where you have EV owners who are experienced with charging and the available incentives out there, and they can actually answer a lot of the questions that attendees would have for dealerships that some dealer representatives can't answer. So you can point that out that, again, it's just a very good environment for a dealer to bring their vehicle to.
Kylie, this is Guy again. I want to add another factoid or piece of information that might help sell the dealer. Over a number of events, we've seen that after we do a 2 to 3 month survey of the attendees, after post-event, we're finding that 50% of those that went on the test drive were either had bought an EV or are still looking and planning to be purchasing an EV. So 50% of those test drives are turning into real value and real sales for the dealership. So that's a useful piece of information.
That's great, thank you. All right, and the last note is just confirm with the dealership the day before and the morning of the event that they're able to be there. If suddenly it turns into a really busy day for the dealership, they may cancel suddenly, but in my experience, that hasn't happened too often. All right, and so after your event, there's a lot that you should remember to do to make your next event successful and even just to promote the one that just happened. So be sure that you collect and save all your photos, stories, or data. while the event's happening, it's good to go around and collect stories from EV owners, ask why they went electric, their best experience driving their electric vehicle, maybe ask about any long road trips they've taken. And you can record a video of their answer and use that for later. You can also record the number of conversations you had with attendees. You can record the number of rides or drives that were done in electric vehicles, so that you can use those statistics in your event report, which can be submitted on the Drive Electric Earth Day website. And also, if you have any photo releases, be sure to save those. And another good thing to do is to send out a post-event press release. So even if media didn't show up to your event the day of, they might still cover the event afterward. And one thing, there's many things you can talk about, but be sure to focus on how many people learned about EVs. And I just want to stop here for a minute, and I'm going to send out a poll to everyone to gauge what organizations people are working with. And also, I want to note that if anyone has any questions, you can use the question feature in the control panel to the right of your screen. But I'm going to go ahead and send out this poll now. So if you choose to, when I send out the poll, it'll take you to another screen to answer it. But then when you submit your answer, you'll come back to the webinar. So don't worry about that.
Hey, Kylie, one thing, this is Jeff. It looks like Steph's on the line, but muted, and I'm just wondering if there's a way to get her involved. She said she wants to communicate a couple things if possible.
Oh, great. I just unmuted Steph, but I'm just going to finish the poll first.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you, though, for letting me know. All right, and we're just waiting a few minutes while people answer the poll. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the poll now. But it looks like 36% of people said they're working with, still going. So about 39% of people say they're working with a government organization. About 48% are working with a nonprofit. And about 20% are working with a business. And so I asked in this poll, what organizations are you partnered with? And this is assuming that many of the people on this call are organizing an event or helping with one. And as we can see, it looks like about half of people are working with a nonprofit and 46% are working with an EV club or organization, which is great. All right, so I just closed the poll. Again, use the chat or question feature in the control panel if you have any trouble getting back to the webinar. Steph, did you want to go ahead and say a few things?
Sure. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hi, Kylie. Okay. If you could go back to the slides, I would love to chat about a few things that weren't mentioned.
Got it. To the social media slide?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Oh, wrong way.
Perfect. Okay. All right. So, and thank you to Jeff and Kylie and Guy for covering these slides while I was muted. Just a couple things I wanted to add about using social media. Facebook Live is a really great tool for the right type of thing. So Facebook Live is a tool on Facebook where you can do a live video. And the best live videos are ones where you're actually doing something. And an event like a Drive Electric event is actually a really cool idea to do a Facebook Live event. So for example, You could have someone either from your group on your groups page. So I'm at Sierra Club, so I would have National Sierra Club do a live event, which would then get announced to all of Sierra Club's followers. And let's say that I'm going to drive in an electric vehicle for the first time, or preferably ride in an electric vehicle for the first time, because you don't want to be operating your cell phone while you're driving. And then just, go live, and people would be able to see, my reaction to what it's like to ride in an electric car for the first time. So that, it gives a sense that to people that they're actually there, even if they can't be there. And that Facebook Live link is available later for people to watch. And that can be a great way. You can do the same thing on Instagram with their stories. You can also live tweet. So live tweeting is basically just, you're somewhere and kind of reporting in 240 characters what's going on. You can take pictures and live tweet them that way. At times, there are Drive Electric events where policymakers are making announcements, and so those are great things to live tweet as well. And I'd welcome any other questions about social media. If you can go pop forward to the next couple of slides, Kylie, that you wanted me to speak on.
Yeah, is it this one?
Nope.
Oh, let's see. So we're gonna go over photos.
Yeah, okay. So as a digital person, and most of the photos that we might take could have a second life as, pieces of our digital promotion later on, right? So that's why I talked about faraway group shots, not particularly helpful unless you're holding some big sign. What we know about digital photos, or photos that you might see in a digital capacity, are that our brains are trained to look at a photo longer, excuse me, if the person in the photo is looking at the camera, and if their face is recognizable. So that's why this particular photo on this page is actually really great, because, all three of these people are doing just that. They're looking at the camera, their faces are recognizable. Now, the way that I would change this photo if I were setting this up is to make it clear somehow that they are in an electric car. Close-up pictures of cars are great. People looking at or driving the cars. The thing that I would avoid is trying to get 6 cars in one shot. Focus on one, because digital photography, like using digital photography, is often really small. Like a picture in an email is going to be like 2 inches by 1 inch. So you want to make sure that your picture is close up so that people will be able to see what you're talking about. Cute is good. There was one that I saw from an event last year that was just so great. It was a picture of an old man and a toddler. They were facing away from the camera, so no problems with the toddler being in it. They were holding hands, looking at an electric vehicle, and there was the U.S. Capitol in the background. I loved it. It was a great photo. We didn't use it for other reasons, but I really loved it. So, while in keeping with some of the other things we've talked about related to photography, cute can be good. So if anybody has a GoPro, that's what I mean by a dash cam. GoPros are really good at kind of moderating the bounce level. As I said, Facebook Live Drive. If someone is experiencing instant torque for the first time, like, you can either do a dash cam so that you can see it live, or a Facebook Live Drive, or you can have them like imitate while they're not moving after they go on their drive, like what that was like, and then use that as a fun way to post on social media. So I wanted to, Kylie, if you can go backwards for a second and take a look at some of these other photos. So as Kylie said, this is not a great photo. No one's looking at the camera. People's faces are covered. You can't tell that there's an electric car in it. There's a kid in it, albeit they're facing away. It would have taken 30 seconds to make this into a great picture, but right now it's not. Go backward one. Remember that pictures should tell a story clearly, and I'm not sure what this picture is telling us, but again, 30 seconds, it could have been a great shot, having people look at the camera and making it clear what they're talking about, which is an electric vehicle. Back one, please. Once again, if the guy in the hat and the guy in the blazer wanted to go on either side of the car, kind of kneel down and show the inside of a bolt, like that would have been a great shot. As it is, no one's looking at the camera, and it's unclear except for the fact that there's a bolt in small lettering, that's what they're talking about. So focus on what you're trying to take a picture of. And back one more. This is a great shot, okay? The one thing I would say is he could have popped his his sunglasses off, because then we see his eyes, and like I said, that's really important because we're evolutionarily cued in to look at people's eyes. This is showing the inside of a car, so people can already see, oh, this is not it's not what my car looks like. If you're not crazy about the person in the background of that, that standing there with the long hair, you can always Photoshop that out. It's very easy to grab the color of the sky, which is very muted, and just take a big Photoshop pen and color over it so that you can't see them. And one more back. Oh.
It looks like we've gone through everything, all of them.
There was a picture from yesterday that I wanted to point out as, please don't take these types of pictures, but I guess it's not there now. Oh well. The picture was like super far away. It was of some tents and like a person walking towards it. Didn't even have any cars in it, and I was like, that's a great example of the picture not to take.
Well, good to know. And definitely, we'll also send out, this month we'll send out kind of a tip sheet on photos to take with some of these tips and some examples of good photos. All right. Well, thank you so much, Steph.
Absolutely.
All right. So going on, as we covered last, some things to do after your event ends: collect important data, photos, and send out a post-event press release. The next thing I want to go over is ride and drive safety tips. So on the Drive Electric Earth Day website, on the resources page, there's a new tab called Event Safety, and you'll just see some general tips for making sure your event is safe and accessible to everyone. So some pointers from that page are to create clear pedestrian pathways in areas with moving vehicles. So you can use cones, yellow construction tape, or anything that makes sense to create walkways for people through parking lots or through exits and entrances where vehicles are coming in and out. Another good thing to do is post a volunteer or a staff person to monitor areas with moving vehicles, so they can help direct people through a parking lot, or again, across areas where vehicles are exiting or entering your event space. And then make sure your event is accessible to people with disabilities. So it's important to consider that, if your event is in a building, make sure there's a wheelchair accessible entrance and things like that. You can also provide trash cans and recycling bins. If you're organizing an event in a parking lot, you'll want to make sure that there's a trash can nearby or provide your own. Finally, a good thing to do is collect feedback from your attendees. They can often provide you with tips that you didn't even think about, and let you know if there's any other ideas you should consider for next year. All right, and we covered this a bit on our last webinar, but I just want to go over this again about some liability issues surrounding doing an electric vehicle test drive or ride. So if you have a dealer providing test drives, they should bring their own liability waivers and they will have insurance for their vehicles. If you have EV owners providing static display vehicles and rides in their vehicle, then they do so under their own personal auto insurance. And then finally, Plug-in America and Electric Auto Association do provide limited event insurance for some events. You can see the resources page for more information, and you can also email me with any questions, and I'll provide my email at the end of this webinar. And so what's new? I'm happy to announce that you can now order your free event kit and it will contain printed materials as well as a banner. So you can find the link to place your order in the Notes for City Captains section of your event page. You can access that by logging into the driveelectricearthday.org website. Then if you navigate to your event page, you'll see a box, a green outlined box, and that's the Notes for City Captains section. And there will be a link to access the order form. The event kits have printed materials from Sierra Club, our national sponsors. They also have materials from Plug-in America, such as the EV guide and a Charging 101 fact sheet. And again, this is free to order and it'll be shipped to you for free. And as I mentioned before, we updated the resources page with a safety page, which I encourage you to check out for more tips than I gave on this webinar. And you can also download the Electric Auto Association's Event Coordinator Guide from electricauto.org. And just a reminder, if you want to register an event, this is a screenshot of the driveelectricearthday.org website. So if you, this is how you'd register an event. Just click on that orange button there. All right, so now we're going to go through questions. If you have any questions, you can still use the question panel, question box in your control panel to type in any questions, and we'll get to those now. And I encourage any of our speakers to jump in and answer a question if they want.
Kylie, before we get into some of the questions, just want to add an item to your previous slide. The event coordinators guide and handbook is something that's available from the Electric Auto Association on the Electric Auto Association website, but it's available only to members of the Electric Auto Association, which is a very easy organization to join. So look up on the homepage to join the Electric Auto Association, and with that, not only the coordinators in that handbook, has also a number of other benefits for joining the EAA.
Awesome, thank you, Guy. All right, so the first question, and Guy, I think this would maybe be for you if you can answer it, is did you have to get insurance to have a bounce house at your event?
So a key point here is that the bounce house was put on by the event host that were putting on the Earth Day event. So we didn't put on the bounce house ourselves. It was part of the existing event. The key part is that we're able to use that though to help attract people and families and even volunteers to come to the event. So leveraging what the host site does as part of any of your outreach efforts has a significant value. So I guess to answer that, there was nothing that we had to do ourselves to get the bounce house there.
Awesome, thank you. All right, and next we have a question. So this person just found out about Drive Electric Earth Day, and they're already hosting an electric vehicle exhibit and ride event at a general Earth Day event. So their local electric utility is one of the sponsors. Their question is, does this prohibit them from being able to network with us? And they're also interested in, they need to adhere to any sponsorship recognition requirements of Drive Electric Earth Day. So the answer to that is you can definitely register the event on the Drive Electric Earth Day website, even if you're already planning it with a larger event. As far as marketing requirements, you can visit the resources page to get specifics on that. But generally, we would just ask that you include the Drive Electric Earth Day logo, as well as the logos of the national sponsors with some text describing, their relationship to Drive Electric Earth Day. And we ask that you include those logos on promotional materials. But there's no requirement for you to change the name of your event or even add Drive Electric Earth Day to the main name of your event. We would just appreciate if you could market Drive Electric Earth Day in conjunction with your own event. All right. Next question is, does Plug in America coordinate ride and drives? The answer to this is yes. And for more information on that, I would just encourage you to email me separately about that. All right. Just going through the questions now. Yeah, so one note here. Someone mentioned that they got their city's mayor's office to issue a proclamation of the event. And Steph, I don't know if you are comfortable speaking more about that, or maybe Jeff, just the value of having a proclamation. And
Sure, I'd be happy to. So you're just wanting to know why it's a good idea to do that?
yeah, and kind of how to use it in a press release or work with the mayor's office, for example.
Yeah, okay, so having policies announced at Drive Electric Earth Days, or any kind of Drive Electric event. Number one is it's going to get the press more interested, because that's actually like breaking news, whereas sometimes events are not as so much breaking news. And making it's a way to have the event, and the hype around electric vehicles last longer than the day of your event. So it's a really good idea. So if you were going to work with a mayor's office, you would want to start early and talk to them about whether there's any policies related to electric vehicles or transportation that they are considering right now. If not, there are possibilities. And I'm happy to talk to anyone who might be interested in working with their local elected officials about what kinds of policies might be available that you can kind of cut and paste and modify to fit your jurisdiction. And then, you'd want to highlight this in the press event, or sorry, in the press, releases and the notifications that you're giving to media outlets, so that they know that there is something breaking going on. But yeah, it adds to the to your whole event, and it helps to make sure that the lasting effect there is a lasting effect to your event.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, and also if you would like a template for a proclamation, like proclaiming a certain day, or April as Drive Electric Earth Day month in your city, you can email me and I'll help you with that. All right, and we have a question here. Any suggestions for recruiting volunteers? And so do any of the speakers want to take that? Guy, I know you've done tons of events, so maybe you'd want to jump in.
Sure. Boy, I'll tell you, that's one of the best questions of the day. Volunteers are what can break the difference. The volunteers, especially if they're EV owners, can really give the an authentic, personal conversation with community members as they come to your event. So it's very important to get them to the event. So how to get them to the event? Again, certainly have to promote the different organizations that you're with. Perhaps if there's a local chapter of the Electric Auto Association there, or members of Plug in America Sierra Club. Those organizations have always great volunteers. But it's also, you want to make sure that they know that there's two things that seem to be that important bringing the volunteers in. One, that they feel that they're going to make a change. They're going to make an impact to help get the community go electric. The second is they want to make sure that they're going to have fun. So emphasizes a part of also the event that their family can be at, and they can see and they can join in a group of people and other event activities. So those are the first two suggestions I would make. Anybody else want to chip in on this?
Yeah, this is Jeff. I think, talk to your friends and neighbors, put it on social media, just let them know that you're involved with the event and tell them to spread the word. I mean, maybe they have interest in either coming out to the event, helping set some stuff up with you guys. If they're maybe enthusiasts themselves or own EVs, it's just, I think just communication, get the word out, let them know what's going on, and ask if they have any interest in helping, and maybe encourage them to also share it with their other friends and family members and neighbors, and just talking about it and telling people what you're doing. I think the interest can be perked, and then hopefully get more interest and more engagement, more volunteers to come out and help with the event. And I think you just need to do a good job of just kind of spreading the word in whatever outlets that you have, whether it's on your Facebook page or posting an event on there, or just kind of talking informally, sending out emails to some of your email groups and lists, and just get the word out.
And another thing to add, if you're having trouble finding EV owners in your area, there's two avenues you might consider. One is to, when you're driving around town or your community, keep a set of a little 3x5 cars, something to make notes on. And when you see an electric car in the parking lot, drop and put it in a note saying to call you out their car, and find out most people are interested in showing their car. So often that's the way to recruit people. Another interesting one that discovered is many of you are probably familiar already with PlugShare to help you locate different charging locations. But at each one of those locations, there is often a list of people that registered or mentioned that they charge at that location. And if you look at that, you can actually send each of those people a message. So there might be 5 people that stopped at one station and often identifies the kind of car they have. You can send them a message saying, hey, what do you think about joining us at an event on Earth Day and showing your car? So that's another way to reach out to EV owners if you don't have the lot that you're already connected with.
Awesome, thank you. And just a note here, I'm seeing a lot of comments in the question box about people having trouble when they go to order their event kit. It says the orders are closed. If that's the case, we'll definitely test it and address that right away, and we'll let you know when that bug is fixed, if there's a bug for certain people. All right, and just looking at some other questions here. One person pointed out that they had a top official from their electric utility company come to their event. So it's another thing to consider is, reach out not only to public officials like mayors and governors, but also to utilities, because they're the people you want to educate about EVs and, the charging infrastructure that's needed. Also, if you have, your fire department or police department, if they recently got an electric vehicle as part of their fleet, you can invite them to come to your event and showcase that vehicle. All right, so that's the end of the questions for now. If anyone has any additional questions, please feel free to email me We will be posting the recording of the webinar and the slides on the website at a later time, and we'll let you know when that's up. Thank you everyone so much for coming, and thank you to all of our speakers for attending.